Welcome to the Real HD Show. We're back, fresh, better than ever. The higher discussion is what they call us. I'm your host, Vic. I want to welcome you to a show that you're going to find on these or any other airwaves, where we handle the good, the bad, the ugly of our people, and we heal it with freedom music. Freedom music happens um, from 7:30 to 8 p.m. Where we put a battery in your back. We give you that soulful hip hop, bass, jazz, R&B, all that good stuff to keep you going, um, and help you progress into the rest of the 21st century. Uh, we are here. We miss you. Let's have a higher discussion. So please turn on all your notifications, like, share, subscribe, tell your friends to tune in. Turn on all your notifications so every time we have a Real HD show, you too could tap in and have a higher discussion with us. We enjoy your company. We can't do this without you, just like we can't do this without Brother Godspeed. What's the deal, bro?
Peace. Chilling, bro. How you?
Peace. I'm good,
Alright.
man. Back on the wheels of steel, make keeping it real.
Word up, word up.
Ready to have a higher discussion out this piece. You
Yes,
know,
yes. Yes, I.
yeah, man. Glad you could join, man. We here tonight for this.
It's a whole lot.
Whole lot. Whole lot of a whole lot.
Oh,
Choosing the
yes, a whole lot.
couch. The lazy boy paradox. You know what I mean? We're gonna talk about that.
All right.
We're gonna talk about that because there's some ruminations about the melanated men in our community and our value and our worth, our substance, what we're worth, what we're not worth. And it's time to put some things to best, put some
Yep,
things to bed, and lay some things to rest and tell some truths out here. You know what I mean?
indeed.
Yeah, man. But before we do that, let's jump right into something that I know you're gonna hold near and dear. Let's jump into a lit city report right here on the Real HD Show. Check it out. All right, we're back. Um, Godspeed. Can you hear me?
Yes, indeed.
Okay, cool. I
Crystal
got this
clear.
mic and I got this new interface, so
Mmm.
I gotta constantly monitor it. Like my levels are going crazy.
Got some new toys to share the word with the girls and boys.
Yes, sir. So I gotta make sure I'm not fragging. If I stay within the green or the orange, I'm good. If I'm up in the red, then I'm too strong. So right now I'm looking okay. We trying to stay out of we trying to stay out of the red. Okay, cool. So we're here. We're in a lit city report moment. You know what I mean? The good, the bad, the ugly of our people, because we need levity. And the reason why I brought this subject up was due to a text that you sent me earlier today, and it was about the passing
Yeah, man.
of one of our
Yeah,
greats.
man.
She was
Yeah,
a
man.
young one. She was a young one, but she was a dope one, and she fought the good fight with cancer. You know, and I'm talking about none other than the bombshell. Not only for her beauty, but for her brains and her
Yes.
contributions while she was here. I'm talking about Amanda Lewis.
Yes,
And
indeed.
yeah, man. Before we go too far, before we show a little montage on her accomplishments and get into it, what are your first thoughts on Amanda Lewis taking her journey, her glorious journey back to the ancestors? What's your thoughts?
I'll say this, man. Ananda was incredible, in my opinion. I was
Mm-hmm.
a fan. I seen her like on BT, I believe. She used to host and everything. And like you don't know a person, you just know the personality they give off on the camera. That's all you could go off of. Always,
Right.
always like shooting higher than lower. Always super professional. Made us look really good up there. Never was showing too much like skin and carrying on silly. Never seemed like she was anything other than a moral based woman. And even when she was super young, I mean, she's our age. You know what I mean? So
Right.
she'd been on the camera when we were in our 20s, running around on open mics. She was on the TV screen. You know what I mean? And hosting.
Right.
At a time when there was rumors about certain BET hosts back then. You know, the whole director's chair stuff. And guess what? Her name was never tied to it. And then after a while, I noticed that she just wasn't on that platform anymore. And I would always hear every now and again she's doing all these positive works, charity work, things like that. And always about her people, you know. So I didn't know she was sick though. I didn't know she was sick until like I want to say last week. I started hearing about this situation. Don't quite know the day that she passed on, but I believe it to be sometime last week, sometime between last week and now. So I always looked at her as a shining, beaming example of, as we would say, black excellence. You know what I mean? And
Mm-hmm.
and then the video I sent you, that's why I warned you and Sister Glow that it could be a tearjerker because I don't want to be messing up Sister Glow's flow either. You know what I'm saying? But I have to
Yeah, for sure.
forewarn. But I just wanted to put that to y'all because I know all in all you all would be interested in that story. And also let's just get to it. This young lady, not only was she a beaming example for the community from the mainstream platform, which is not easy again to stress, but for her to take on that fight against that monster known as cancer, breast cancer to be, from what I've heard, for her to take that struggle and fight on with no chemotherapy, choosing to go strictly holistic, and as Dr. Sebi less era that we in now, says a
Right.
whole lot about her moral constitution as a light being having a human experience. You know what I mean? And
Yes.
I gotta say, dude, I could almost tear up. Don't even know this woman, but I've had people in the family that had that fight. You know what I mean? So I kind of get
Right.
it, and I'll yield the floor. I kind of get it. You know?
Yeah, man. I think she was dope, and she was one of the very first, I guess, what you would call correspondents. And I go
Mm-hmm.
back her Teen Summit days, where she used to host Teen Summit,
Yeah, yeah,
and she seemed very responsible about the way that she held the issues of our community.
yeah,
She seemed very passionate. She seemed very integral and honest,
yeah,
and it almost seemed like she was determined to show the world that she wasn't just another pretty face,
yeah.
but she had a great brain.
Absolutely.
And I thought she was dope for that. And I loved the way she gave that TLC to the issues that mattered in our community. I
Yeah,
can remember her on Teen Summit talking about AIDS. I can remember her
yeah,
on Teen
yeah.
Summit talking about, you know, uh, teenage kidnappings, all the things
Mhm.
that nobody on the mainstream media will cover.
You're
She
bringing
would
it
cover.
back. Those are the things I kind of forgot the specifics, but now you mention it, I'm catching flashbacks. You're right.
Yeah, yeah, and she was a dope one for that, man. And
Hmm.
she really set the bar for. And I'm sorry people didn't follow, but she really set. I think she set the bar for a lot of our correspondents when there wasn't many.
Yeah,
She was out there when there wasn't. There was only Stuart Scott and a handful of others. You know what I mean?
yeah,
And there was definitely nobody talking to the hip hop generation. There was definitely nobody
yeah,
talking to the youth
yeah,
in whole and in aggregate. And she decided to do that.
yeah,
You know, that was I thought she was fire, and
yeah.
she will always be remembered for saying, wait a minute, let me get over there with the mic, wait a minute," and she'd run all the way across the floor. And
Word.
what do you got to say on the topic? And she was always about the audience, about intermingling with the people, and even when she moved on to MTV, and I believe she was even on Extra or one of those sort of like celebrity news shows. She was always professional, and like you said, I'm not sure what she got herself involved in. I'm sure there's a rumor or two about her out there if you go looking, but it was nothing to the salacious level of
Right.
where you know she was a disrespectful one or,
Right.
an audacious one, somebody that was out there for the streets.
Right.
And it could have easily went that way based on the era that we were transitioning into, the 80s and the
Mm-hmm.
late 90s, when she was
Mm-hmm.
out there doing her thing with all of the MTV stuff.
Yeah.
So, she'll be missed, man. She'll be
Yeah.
missed. And let's see if I can get this video going with her in it and detailing a little bit about her life and times. And hopefully others will pop on and others can give their account. Or if you're at home listening to our many channels that we're broadcasting from, maybe you could tap in, give us a comment on Miss Amanda Lewis and her life and times and why she was so dope. So let's just get into that. Amanda Lewis, her life and times. Um, Real HD show. Check it out.
Then I got a Snoop video for you, okay? And this one is
She helped to lead one of MTV's flagship programs, Total Request Live, or TRL, the iconic daily Top 10 music video countdown, along with other shows like Hot Zone. Her fame at the peak of MTV's prominence led to her own syndicated talk show, The Ananda Lewis Show, when she left the network in 2001. Lewis revealed her cancer diagnosis in 2020, saying that she had long avoided mammograms due to a fear of radiation exposure. She then used her platform to urge women to get screened. Ananda Lewis was just 52 years old.
All right. Well, that was by PBS. That wasn't very thorough or very in depth, but and her best work, in my opinion, was when she was on Teen Summit, BET, and those were like her early
Definitely.
days.
Yeah,
You
for
know what I
sure.
mean?
For sure.
Those are her early
For
days,
sure.
full of energy, full
Thank
of
you.
vim and vigor, ready to
Yep.
take on the world, ready to talk about any topic that had to do with the community,
Yep.
even if it helped the community. And I can remember one time on the show she spazzed out because they would her and the host, I believe his name was Ajamu or Kamal or Kitwana or something like that. It was a
Mm.
male host that she was on the show with. Brother had like curly hair, and they were talking about something serious, and she spazzed out on the audience because they weren't being as responsible about the topic that she thought they could have been. You know what I mean?
Mm.
So
Mm.
she
Okay.
basically had to go into, giving folks that smoke
Yeah.
because she was passionate about the issue. I think it was about AIDS. I think that's what it was
Mm.
about.
Mm.
And she was talking about how it can affect anyone, and people need to take this seriously before it's your life
Mm.
that's lost as a result of it. You know what I mean? So,
Right.
she was a real one. So sorry to hear her go, and hear her passing.
Yeah.
She'll be missed. Her work will be missed, and I just wish she had
Absolutely.
an opportunity to continue that integral work, that wholesome work for the
Mm.
community that she started out doing.
Yeah.
In her offset, on her onset to correspond to her correspondence work. And it's interesting. She leaves a legacy of people to follow, like the Lala Anthony's,
Mm. Yes. Yeah.
and
Um.
there was others.
Free.
Free,
Free.
yep,
Mm-hmm.
yep.
Mm-hmm.
106 in Park, Roxy.
Mm-hmm.
It was a
Mm-hmm.
lot of female hosts and
Mm-hmm.
correspondents that got their start. And I
Yep.
could say BET and Viacom took a chance on them because of the real good work that Amanda Lewis did and
I think so.
her later success. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, man. So the last question I want to deal with in terms of this one is, um, do you think that she in her last moments, I was going to show that one too, but I said, I'll let people, if they care enough about it, I'll let people do their own footwork and put that sort of work into checking out her last moments and what she had to say and what she didn't have to say.
Mm-hmm.
But she made a statement about cancer
Yeah.
and about the, when you have a incurable disease and you're on the clock.
Mm-hmm.
And she said she didn't want to get a double surgery to remove both her memories. She wanted to go out on her terms.
Yeah.
So, what say you about, the freedom, justice, and equality of our folks and us,
Mm-hmm.
whatever circumstance we're in, us going out
Mm-hmm.
on our own terms
Right.
versus people, giving us the big chop or telling us how
Yeah.
to do this or telling us how to do that. And
Yeah.
then you never really get a chance to go out the way you want to go out, to live the life you want to live. And none of us really know when our clock is going to be strike 12 again. You know what I mean?
Right.
Or when that time is going to come for us to exit. So, what's your thoughts on living your life to the fullest, even with the diagnosis that she had, and how brave that must have been for her?
Hey, look, yeah, you hit a lot of angles, and there's a few more out there that could be hit. You
Mm-hmm.
know,
For sure.
like I said, from everything I've seen, you saw the footage I saw. So from what I've seen, I have to say it's very brave of her to go the unconventional route. You know,
Right.
and don't know all her. I can't say I've heard all of her reasons on it yet because I'm actually going to check out more of her footages leading up to that point there. But
Mm-hmm.
I could say, like, some of us, a lot of us have our don't pass goals, right? Like my don't pass goal is say like Sister Glow put me onto this movie and I watched about almost 3/4 of it, called Society of the Snow.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Right? So
Yeah, yeah,
all
yeah,
right.
yeah,
All right.
yeah,
I would have been the guy outside trying to eat morsels off of the rock. Let's
yeah.
just say I was that guy right there. You
Right,
know what I'm saying? So
right.
that's my don't pass go. That's my don't pass go. You know what I mean? Because I remember working as a on a garbage truck for like about a year or two, and we used to get into these zany conversations. I worked with a lot of different ethnicities. So one guy was a 1%er, as in from the biker world,
Mm-hmm.
and he was like personification of the stereotype of somebody from that world. Not to say everybody's like that, but he was off the hook. He was wild. You know what I mean? So we get into these bugged out conversations, man. And one of them was like, "Yeah, if I was starving, I would eat a human being." And I was like, "Really?" I said, "I wouldn't." He's like, "You wouldn't?" I say, "I would starve, B. That's my don't pass go. That's a hard line with me. I'm not eating human beings, B. I'm not doing that." You know what I mean?
Mm,
I
mm.
got my belief system. That's just the way I feel I would react in a situation like that. Now, mind you,
Well, well,
mm-hmm,
we're higher conscious people with opposable thumbs that could do for self. So if you
yeah,
can, you know what I mean, then why go
right.
that route? Yeah, you know what I'm saying?
Right, right. So in the science temple, they like to teach about the higher self and the lower self. You know what I mean? And
Right.
they do teach the lower self as being bad initially, to be quite honest with you. And I have my own take on that. I believe the higher self and lower self. Uh, I believe that they're both at times needed, and I believe you can
Yes.
intermix them.
Yes.
Right. But with
Yes.
that said, I don't believe I'd allow my lower self to control me to that degree right there.
Mm.
That's my hard line. My hard line is not to cannibalism. I'm completely against it. I don't even like people calling my family members Caribbean. I don't like it. All right, that's a
Right.
stereotype they threw on us a long time ago. This dude from England and the Spaniards linked up and called us Caribbeans. as in cannibals. So
Right.
I've always had a hard line against that altogether. So that's my hard line. I guess her hard line was chemotherapy and things like that, so that's our hard line. So I think we all have a hard line that we deep down inside feel very strongly about. And rather if that situation comes up or not, if we're going to go past our hard line, that's a whole nother thing. Because I'm going to be straight with you. I like the idea that I used to have, I'm going to say me, I used to have as a kid that when I say no, it means I won't go. You know what I'm saying? But
Yes, sir.
I'll be honest with you, B. As an adult, the kinds of things I've seen, more so than what I've personally went through, but I might have went through with others or help others through and pass. You know, I could only tell you what is my hard line because that's what I project as my hard line, right? And I'm a guy who I don't even eat anything outside of fish. I don't even eat anything outside of fish, right?
Mm.
And I even eat fish with a guilt. I feel
Mm.
guilty with that pleasure.
Yeah, I
And
know.
that's
I
why I
know.
don't
I know some folks who could share your sentiment.
copy. You know what I'm saying? Like
Hmm.
some people might say, animal activist. I say, no, you're not an animal activist. You're really a pet activist. You just
Right.
advocate for your pets. You don't advocate for animals. Don't even bother, doing that with me. You know what I'm saying? But but anyways, my pet peeves, right? But with this young lady, her no pass go was a hard one, B. No chemo, no nothing outside of natural remedy for the internal ailments. And I respect that so much. She stood on a square that a lot of people wouldn't have really stood on. Some have, don't get me wrong, but a lot wouldn't have, you know? Wish I had
Right.
known her. I would have suggested this guy in the city because he don't do chemo. He looked out for my old man, prostate cancer, the whole nine shot, got my old man right. You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
no chemo.
Tell everybody about him because you wrote him in
Yeah,
the chat. So it's only right that
right,
give him
right.
some
What I want to
shine.
do,
Give
what
him
I
some
want to do is
love.
I
And,
definitely want to
talk.
next time we get on here, I'm gonna
Okay.
just have his number handy. I'm gonna see what I could find online that would be, something
Yeah.
that we could kind of promote because I look at it like this. When it comes to that information, I like to share. You know what I mean? That's a
Right.
public person. He ain't my friend. You know what I mean? He did some great work for my
Right.
old man, but I don't know this man personally. But what I would say is that his service is public. The public should know about it. Every now and again I hear his advertisement on 1010 Wins News, but that gentleman, let me try to find his name real quick because sometimes I got to look at his name just to remember it. Sometimes out of sight, out of mind. But hold on, I'm gonna get his name for y'all real quick. Hold on,
Mm-hmm.
just to be right and exact as possible. Dr. Gil Liederman. Yep, Dr. Gil Liederman. So the thing is that what he
Okay.
uses is it's not chemotherapy. Now he could help people who are on chemo, and he can help people who just don't want chemo. You know what I mean? Often heard his office say that they'll even attempt to help people at fourth stage cancer, which most people don't pass go on. You know, now nothing's ever
Right.
guaranteed. When you look at the checks and balances of fourth stage cancer, there's no guarantees. All right, but this man said that he will still help you in that stage and try his best to move you out of that stage and then build from there. You know, he also helped another good friend of mine's too, who did some services with him, and it actually is going back to him now. You know what I mean? So I know his work stands up. You know, him and his son. His son is taking over the business, getting a baton from him, but Dr. Liederman is still in play. He's not, wrapping it up. He's just making sure his son is training for the future as well. So his son and him, they both doing the practice together. So look, I'll put it to you like this: my elder don't mind me sharing because he brags about it. 35 visits, 35. That's all it took. All within the 5 day week every week in a row. So technically, like not yet, and it was like five, like throughout the day, throughout the week. You going throughout the week, 35 days. You know what I mean? Just rest on the weekends. Now it's only 50-minute sessions. And when you walk out of there, you're not feeling depleted, weak, or lethargic, or anything like that. You go right about your business like it never happened. I've seen it with my own eyes. And I'm telling you, he cleared up my old man's issue. He sure did. Cleared it right up. So,
Dope.
what I got to do is I got to get some of his materials, because I don't want to stand here and act like, I read the stuff back then, but I'll be honest with you, out of sight, out of mind a little bit with that. But, what I could say is the difference in his treatment versus chemo is this. Chemotherapy gets rid of the bad stuff, but it also gets rid of the good stuff that you need at the same time.
Right. Tears you up.
Tears you up.
Right.
It gets rid of the good and the bad stuff. All the good and the bad cells. All right.
Yeah,
Which leaves the
it rips
people
through the cells
depleted.
it's like a chainsaw through the cells. Yeah.
Yeah. No matter who they are, good or bad.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's the big thing.
No, yeah,
The
yeah,
big
no doubt.
difference. But the big difference is that with his treatment, and I think it's radio, laser, something or the other like that, right? But his own goes right to the area that's in trouble and does not bother the other areas neighboring. That's the big advantage. That's the big
Okay, so
advantage.
he has more of a tech invasive treatment than just a wide ranging modality of treatment and medicine for it. So, and
Yeah.
then with chemo, you're not even sure that you can fight off the return of the the cancer cells. They may come back. There's no assurance that it won't.
After all
And
that pain and suffering that you go
Mhm.
through, now, mind you, you're trying to get away from pain and suffering. You're trying to get away from
Right,
death.
right,
But there is pain and suffering dealing with that too, But
right.
his methodology don't put people through pain and suffering to get rid of something. That's why,
Mm,
I would always promote his stuff. You know what I mean? But
yeah.
what I want to say too is because this is a crazy topic, but how I could put it. Okay, with her situation, right? My
Mm-hmm.
perspective on her making that decision, I
Mm-hmm.
respect it. It's brave. I hope to be able to be strong if I ever need that kind of strength anytime. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But at the same time, and I'm not saying this towards her. I'm not going to be saying that because I don't know her and I don't want to disrespect her indirectly or otherwise. Because I actually like what she did for us in the public. I said it before.
Yeah.
I'm going to say this hypothetically. Let's say Jane was as strong-willed as Ananda Lewis. Let's just say Jane was just as strong, right? About the same thing. I would say that I admire Jane's strength and would love to be able to have that type of strength if ever I need it, right? But there's a level of stubbornness there that I don't want at the same time. That's a level of stubbornness. The kind of stubbornness that could hurt you in the end. That is something I don't want to inherit from anyone. Sometimes, a person may pick to say, you know what? Let me try something else because I've been trying this and this ain't letting up.
Right.
Sometimes you got to look outside the box. Looking outside the box was going holistic already in this world. But you may have to look outside of that box and it may or may not lead you back into the box.
Yeah.
Right? Because you go in the box, you get a Band-Aid instead of stitches, you get a Band-Aid. You know the Band-Aid is going to come off and that cut might not be healed yet. But guess what? If it prolongs you to further research in what you truly believe in and how you truly want to do it, you might have found something that you might have missed out on in that holistic situation that you could go now, reapproach it, and do a better job. So I'm just throwing that out there too for people to know that sometimes like I always tell you guys on the show, and I don't hold no punches. I believe that Eastern medicine is useful, and I believe that Western medicine is useful as well. I do. I don't think either one knows it all. Like I always tell people, you get into a car accident, your bone is poking out your skin. Show me a piece of bush that you're going to rub, any kind of herb that you're going to rub that's going to make that bone go back in, mend itself on the inside, and re-stitch your skin on its own with just that herb on top. I'm not saying it's out there, but I'm saying that I have not seen it yet. All right.
Well,
And
the body does repair itself.
yeah, but at what speed? You see what I'm saying?
No, I'm
That's the
saying,
thing. That's the thing
well,
with folks. I don't want to get into it with folks on that because, honestly, what speed? You know what I'm saying? I'm saying I was very what's the word? Very what's the word? Very extreme. I was very extreme on purpose. You know what I'm saying? Bone is
yeah.
poking out of someone's body. Car accident. Bone poking out their body. Show me a herb. And I watched the martial art movies back in the day when they used to take the guys with the broken arm in the martial art fights and run short, and they used to snap their arm back together and put the bush on it. You know what
Yeah,
I'm saying?
yeah.
I was about that life too, right? So I'm just saying, real life situation. I haven't seen it yet. It'd be nice, but I
Well,
have not seen it yet. Dr.
well,
Sabi didn't even said it was
I'll
there.
I'll I'll say this. I'll say this. I'll say that the modern Rockefeller style medicine that everybody, goes gaga for
Yeah.
only is I guess, a reinforcement for the body's only self-healing. Would it take longer if you didn't have the Rockefeller style pharmaceutical medicinal triage type of thing? Yeah, sure. And I say Rockefeller because he kind of set the standards back in the 30s and the 40s for how everybody was gonna pre-subscribe healing
The
and medicine.
pharmaceuticals and all that stuff.
Or right, and it didn't do nobody a lick of good.
Right.
It just kind of shortened the ability, or got people hooked on the ability to use pharmaceuticals instead of the natural healing. And who knows, man? Like, you know, if you only had to use apothecary or homeopathic type of medicine, maybe that would have been a better teacher for a lot of people.
Well, you know what? It would be because
You
that
understand
has
what I
a
mean?
preventative. Yeah, that has a preventative. What's the
Now
word?
but do you understand what I mean? Like, if you know you're gonna get a certain ailment,
Mm-hmm.
and if you act out of code or discipline or
I was
response,
going there. I was going there with you. I was going there
and
with you.
you know this is gonna be your outcome,
Right.
and you just took a very long time to heal naturally from something that you could have prevented,
Correct.
maybe you may not do that again, because you know the road to getting healthy from that again is
Correct.
nobody's joke. You know
And
what I'm saying?
I agree with you 100% because I was good. That's kind of like where I was heading by saying that there's
So
a
nature has a
built-in.
lot of lessons to teach us
Absolutely.
about
Absolutely.
how to heal, not just the quick remedies of getting better, but
Mm-hmm.
about teaching us about ourselves, about our ethics. You know what I mean? And
Yeah, it's a hard lesson there.
how did we get ourselves in that place? You know what I'm saying? How did we get
Absolutely.
what decisions did we make to get ourselves in that place of poor health? And the last thing I'm gonna say on the Amanda Lewis tip, she was
Mm-hmm.
really dope.
Yeah.
She was in tow. Actually, she won and was nominated for 3 different awards. 1996 Education Cable Ace Award for
Mm-hmm.
Children's Educational or International Special or Series, Teen Summit. So there
Mm-hmm.
you go. And nobody talks about Teen Summit. She did great work there, right?
Absolutely.
1997 NAACP Image Award for Outstanding Youth Series, Teen Summit. There you
Mm-hmm.
go again.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the year 2000, Outstanding News Talk and Information Special for True Life. I'm driving while black. So she did a special on racial profiling. So,
Mm-hmm.
like I said, man, she was a real one. She was really, really dope. And,
Absolutely.
I think there's really something to say about, us solving the, I guess, because she was a mixed child as well. She had mixed ancestry. And, you know, the the psychopathy behind that deals with being a mixed child in this country can torment people.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes. Yes.
You don't
Look
know
at.
who your
Yeah.
you don't know who your tribe is. You don't know who to
Right.
belong to.
Right.
You don't know who to claim, who's
Mm-hmm.
claiming you, and
Mm-hmm.
then that could torture you. And
It
in
could.
that sort of psychosomatic trauma, you know, Cress Wilson always talks about PTSD, post traumatic slave disorder, of not understanding self and the inner torture that brings on the body.
Correct.
All type of ailments arise, and not
Correct.
having a quality of life. I mean, you can have money and not have a quality of life, or
Mm-hmm.
you can not have money and not have quality of life. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I just think it's very important that we seek out quality of life. I
Mm-hmm.
think it's very important that we, take care of self, and that we reward our heroes and our heroines when they do great things like Amanda Lewis. You'll be missed, sis. I didn't really mean to go that long on her journey, but guess what? If we
Yeah.
felt that and if we felt that inclined to talk that long about her, she
Yeah.
must have been a special one. So salute to her.
Salute to
Let's
her. Absolutely.
salute to her. Celebration to her family. You had a great
Absolutely.
person that championed things on this earth and went out on her own terms, and not
Yep.
everybody can say that. So
Not
she
everybody
was
can say
dope.
that.
She was dope. She will
That's
be missed.
brave.
So in the
That's brave.
same league, with the Lit City Report, two twin brothers invent the first exo structure glove that's designed for sports, gaming, training, and more. So
Mm.
and I forget the brothers' names,
Mm-hmm.
but what's more important is their contribution. So they're on some real McCoy stuff. They're gonna, outside of AI, which everybody's seeming to lean on right now, they've provided a digital robotic appendage to help people be a little more exact with the way that they use their dominant hand or their recessive hand. So
Mm.
imagine if your recessive hand or your left hand, I'm right handed, I don't know if you're left handed, but either way, imagine if your left hand was as strong as your right.
Right.
And you could do
Well,
all the
yeah.
things, and you could do
Yeah.
all
That's
the things
something
that
I've
you did
attempted in the past.
with your left hand that you could do with your right hand.
Mm-hmm.
How would that boost your confidence level? How would that boost your
Oh.
ability to purport yourself in the world? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I could definitely speak to it because guess what? Like in JKD, I've always practiced on the left side, and my right hand is the dominant hand, but I've always practiced on my left. So a lot of people look at me as ambidextrous because my old man from my ball playing days always told me, whatever you could do on your right side, do it on your left side. So I was using my left hand at a very young
Right.
age. It's kind of crazy. I started basketball late, but when I started late, I started with both hands.
Yeah. Yeah.
But at any rate, but also too, to stick to what you're saying, I think it's very important and it's good for the brain
Yes. Yes.
because the left hand is being operated by the right side of the brain. So the
Yep.
more you use that left hand, or let's just say your off hand, your off hand is being used by the opposite side of the brain. Whichever hand is your off hand. So when you use that off hand, it exercises the opposite side of the brain from that hand. So it just like it brings you into closer to becoming full brain activity, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So there in teaching, there's a tool that we use. I don't know if many people still use it, but I use it because it helps those who are like dyslexic. It helps those who have like learning disabilities, cognitive dysfunction, and just students in general. And most people write from left to right, but if you practice writing from right to left, you trick the brain, you stimulate the brain, and then your learning curve automatically goes up. Believe it or not, try it and see if you're able to open up your third eye to some different things,
Mm-hmm.
because you're challenging the brain to do things just a tad bit different. You know what I mean?
Correct.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Really,
Like
really
I would,
dope.
even, I would even tell people like something that I do when I have the how can I say the when I remember to tap into doing this more often because it's something I'm really into. I like to attempt to teach myself to write on my opposite hand.
Right.
Yeah. So that's something that's good for the brain as well because again, you're just using that hand and writing is an exercise too. There's a lot of fine muscles, fine
Yeah.
movements
Fine,
that
fine, fine motor skills.
That's what I'm looking for. Exactly. So just putting that out there, but it's important, and I think it's a great thing to promote.
Yeah, man. And if you'd like to join the show, I didn't put this up in the beginning of the show, but I'm putting it up now. You could join us at StreamYard.com G9 78 FM 2ZH, and you too could jump on and have a higher discussion with us. So let's move on, man. That was a really dope Lit City report. Amanda Lewis was dope, and so are those twin brothers who invented those gloves. I was gonna do another one, but in the interest of 9 o'clock, I want to move on and do our AAT report. Here we go. All right, so we're in a healthy, wealthier, and wiser report for a brand new you. It's called the AAT report, Aero, Aqua Terra, anything under in the land, sea, air that'll make you healthy, we're going to cover. And guess what? I got my man Sincere to come back and redo the show with us, and he's going to resume his post as the AAT report correspondent on the show, and that's really going to be dope. And I got
Nice.
I got Heroic Collier, and he'll be doing a melanin mental health moment. So two great brothers who have a lot to offer, and they in the weeks to come, months to come, they will be joining the show and doing their reports on those two segments in those two areas. But for today, we're gonna jump into uh Maccabee talking about a homeopathic remedy and a health plant that we can use to better ourselves. You've all seen it before, but you might not know what it does. Check it out. AAT report.
Word, you got it. Maccabee, stop it. Rock it. Some don't know it as rocket. Okay, let's drop it. Some say arugula, some call it rucola, some call it rucoli, some call it rugula. The scientific name is Eruca sativa. Rocket is a name that is popular. Don't underestimate arugula. It's spectacular, straight like a rocket. Look, perpendicular, full of good vitamins, K in particular. Gives to your blood, doesn't take like Dracula. Eat greens regular, good for your cellular. Full of chlorophyll, that's green and molecular. Help for the heart, that's cardiovascular. Minerals that go with the muscular. Aphrodisiac, testicular, good for the part of the eye called the macula. Antioxidant, antibacteria, superfood, it meet the criteria. Full of nitrates, helps blood pressure. If you got a blood pressure monitor, go and go measure. Wild Rocket, one of nature's treasure. When your body says thanks, you say my pleasure. Peppery flavor, something to savor. Get some in your body and do yourself a favor. Rocket arugula could be a savior with its healing behavior. I want me eat Wednesdays. Yes, sire.
You know that brother's flow.
I was bopping to the 4 count.
That brother flow crazy. You know what I'm saying? Shout out to Maccabee. You know what I mean? I always have to thank him for letting us rock. And
Maccabee,
yeah,
the
man,
super
chat, super MC, dope brother that always puts out not only worthwhile content, but is very entertaining with it at the very same time.
Absolutely.
Arugula, man, put some olive oil on that joint, some salt, man. You good to go, man. It has a taste like nobody's business. Add it to your salad. You can make it its own salad. You don't even need greens. It's a super green itself. Get yourself some arugula, man, and you're gonna see the benefits, man. You're gonna really enjoy that, and it has a nice flavor, nice taste to it. Check it out. Very healthy, green, super green arugula. Hey, so before we get into the heart of the matter, the heart of the show, let's check out some of the Real HD Show TV network events, shows, and so on for the second week, going on third week of June. Check it out. That's right. Your Say Your Way Live TV on the Real HD TV network. That's right. On all our shows, we like to have a higher discussion. Join us. jo- Join us for the Real HD show. Join us for Broadcast Beats. Join us for uh, the Sage Dragon Book Club. And at the end of the week, Sunday night, as we normally do it, join us for In the Bonus Hoops. If you're a hoop fan and you digging what's happening in the finals and you want to talk your ish about basketball, please join us and kick it with us on Sunday night, 7 p.m. You won't you won't regret it. You know what I'm saying? Um, we'll have some really great comments and some really great commentary for you on all of those shows on the Real HD TV network. All right, man. So time is moving, man. Time is moving. So we want to get into the main of the main of the main thing, which is choosing a couch, the lazy boy paradox. So unless you've been hiding under a rock, you probably heard a lot of smoke going the way of young men, young black men, especially, melanated men, and the kind of you know spiel of, can young men provide for young women? Are young men dateable? Are young men marriage material? Can they hold it down moving into the rest of the 21st century? And I gotta say, man, none of it's good. None of the, outlooks, none of the uh, news reports and news stories are good about the outlook of young men. So, what say you about that, bro? What do you think, brother Godspeed, about the outlook of young men and what you've heard? Are you encouraged? Are you discouraged? Talk to me. And do you think that young men have chosen the couch on purpose, or is there a rhyme and a reason for young men not being as active in today's society, life, and times than what they used to be?
Oh, that's a good question, man. That's a good question. As a former young man myself,
Right.
Hey, brother Mozzie.
Hey, what's up, fellas?
Peace and blessings, bro.
Salute,
Glad you could join
absolute,
us, man.
absolute, absolute,
It's been,
absolute.
got to get the things done, man, and try to get on. So,
Yes,
got
sir.
it done.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, man.
Appreciate you. Appreciate you, taking the time out with us and rocking out with us, man. So we asking the question that's out there on everybody's social media pages and talk shows, and anybody that's saying anything about anybody wants to talk about the lazy boy paradox. And of course, by lazy boy, I mean, of course, everybody knows lazy boy as the furniture. But then, of course, they're spewing whatever they feel about the young men of our times, good, bad, or indifferent. Are they choosing a couch? Are they choosing a couch on purpose, or does it go a layer deeper in what's happening with young men out here?
I think it go a little deeper.
Mm-hmm.
The reality is a lot of these kids are a product of their environment,
Mm-hmm.
and part of their environment are the adults that are in it, and most of them, the adults that are in it, are their parents. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
blaming parents. I'm just saying we gotta stop blaming young folks for the situations that we as adults created.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
The reality is this: where are independent schools?
Right. Let's talk about it.
There's a lot of us who grew up that Gen X, those us Gen Xers. We went to college. We got some great knowledge. We that's when the lecture series was really big in the late '80s and the '90s. You got situations where we've learned from some of these great elders. Most of us just got a job and life was good, and that's all we cared about.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
We can stomp the yard and we can go to black tie affairs,
Mm.
have cabarets and boat rides.
Mm. Let's talk
But
about it.
nowhere in that has it ever talked about anything related to independence and independent thinking.
Right.
So is that me?
We're good.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Okay, I'm sorry, man. Yeah, I hear you. I'm just hearing some music, and I'm trying to figure out where the heck it's coming from.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, so you don't hear that, do you?
No.
No, no,
No.
you're good.
Mhm.
I found it. Okay, one of the many. Never mind. You have too many tabs open. But yeah,
Yes,
so we
sir.
got to think about that. We don't have no independent schools. We don't have an independent economy. We don't
Mm-hmm.
have no businesses. And most of the businesses that we have, it's like we purposely keep them small
Mm.
so that we don't have to be responsible for hiring anybody.
Mm.
I
Mm.
know being an executive director before, one of the biggest things that's very frightful is having people who work for you and you got to make payroll.
Right.
And then you're looking across the room and people in the office like, ooh, tax was low this month. Oh
Uh-huh.
shoot! So now you're scrambling around looking to see, okay, when is that next money supposed to drop for us? And you're sitting there like, oh my gosh, how am I going to tell this dude? I know she's struggling financially
Right.
because we didn't pay her that much or him that much. So
Right.
when we start talking about the lazy boy and the lazy children, we created these kids, man. Those of us who have a little who have a few ends, as they like to say, did we really make it tough for our children? You know what I mean? Did we create children that want to go out there and do on their own and think on their own? Or did we buy into pop culture, which was, kids go away to college and they they move back home. We can't get them out the house. So before we start getting on these children and these young adults, we need to do a reality check and we need to do some self inventory in terms of whether or not we have and we've done the things that will elevate our kids beyond the couch. And the
Mm.
answer to that is we have not.
Right. Right. So there's some stuff I want to go through. Because of course, Richard Reeves is back at it again. And he did a series of investigative series talking to a number of young men about the shortcomings of young men and some of the challenges. It almost seems like he wants to be the arbiter of what's going on with young men from a uh, editorial perspective. You know what I mean? He wants to be like the
Mm-hmm.
uh, authoritative source. So he held this. Everybody wants to get in the podcast game, so he held this meeting and he went around, did a round table, um, talking to young men. It was all young white men. He didn't really include any melanated men. I think there was one kid in there that was mixed, but that's neither here nor there. He wasn't from the community. And, they were talking about the different things that affront men. And some of the things we had in common, and because we're all men, and some of the things that we just did not resonate with at all. So then I looked and I was looked at, of course I know the challenges that are facing young men because I teach them all the time. But I was trying to find out what other editorials were out there and what they had to say about the challenges that young men face out here today. And I'm talking about typically young men between the ages of 15 and 35, and what their living prospects for the future. And uh, what say you guys about? There's a factoid out there about 2% of venture capital is dedicated and revolved and dedicated to the development of young men. Why do we think that is? Only 2% of venture capital is dedicated to the development and evolvement of young men. What do you guys, when you hear a statement like that, or do you guys have any, like, I guess, uh, anecdotal testimony to that sort of a thing, as to why that would be a statistic out here? As much as we need healthy families, we need to move into the future?
I would say the have and have mores know that their kids is, pretty much number one set financially. The have and have mores, you know what I mean? And I have my little theories in my head too. That it's about bartering and sharing the rest of us young men or our young men. In between the different departments within this vast system of the government. One of the easiest systems to point to is the jail system. That's one of the easier ones to point to. You know what I mean? I mean, these things are here for a reason, outside of the obvious, mainstream idea of what they're there for, but they're all corporations. All corporations need what? Some form of finance to make those corporations flourish, right? It's just that the jail system is human finance. That's human money. That's like another level of how could I say, disguised human chattel system, because they do enough to make sure that there's not enough out here deterring people, deterring young men, deterring young women from doing the sort of things that's outside of society's norm that lands them in these institutions. The psych ward system, it's another place of business. It's like,
Right.
You look at the food that we all eat, right? Not all, but generally speaking, we all eat. Generally speaking, we all eat these foods that have ingredients that is no good for us. You have soy in every bread. What the soy does? Increase estrogen levels in beings that should not have increased estrogen levels. You know what I mean? Put aside the other dynamics of soy of it having a plastic, material to it when it's broken down in your system. Forget all of that stuff. I'm just saying the results of it all is meant to drive you crazy. So now the psych wards have business. The jail system has the business because they share some of the same clientele. You know what I mean?
So you're
When I look at it from
saying
that angle,
so you're saying the 2% development piece, the 2% investment in young men is intentional.
I'm saying that I suspect that it is. Yeah, I suspect.
Interesting. Okay.
Well, I
So
would
they got
also
another.
say that.
Go ahead, bro.
No, I would also say is we've had, something that we have to acknowledge is, feminism reigns supreme, man, right about now. You can't say anything about a woman or, not have things for women, and everything has always been minimizing men. There's toxic this and toxic that, and anti-patriarchal this and anti-patriarchal that. Those are the things that have been going on for the past 25 years in particular. It's been very strong. And then you're looking at, especially in our community in particular, Black feminism has been very anti-Black misandry.
Right.
We have to acknowledge that, man. And the problem we have is a lot of people don't even know what misandry is.
Yeah.
And even and we've had 50 years of Black feminism, which we all know is built upon very racist white ideology. And then it's gone unchecked. And this is the result of having so many years of something that goes unchecked. I remember as a young man growing up, seeing the Ebony magazine, Jet magazine laid out on the coffee table. You flip through it, or you go to your friend's house. They got Ebony and Jet magazine laid across the coffee table. You start strumming through it, and every last one of them always had an article, at least once a year, twice a year, where they talked about the endangered Black man.
Yeah.
So if we knew these things were happening, we could forecast into the future and say, are we going to put much energy into it, especially as it starts to play itself out? It hasn't. So what we got is nothing but, why should we put energy into Black men?
Yes, sir.
And then overall, why should we put anything into men in general?
Yes, sir. So, these young men matriculate and they can't meet the expectations of the societies that they live in. And then, of course, that increases isolation. And then isolation increases the risk of suicide. So this is kind of a singular subject matter that's very heavy pertaining to, brothers and men. And it's because, lack of agency, lack of development, lack of, get out there in the world and do it. And then it may be even lack of, men in your life to show you how you can move in this world. So even if you make your mistakes, you know how to rebound from them. But whatever your ailment is, and it leads you to that place, that's a very special and rare place that men occupy that is really not paid attention to at all. Um, Shit, I remember we talking about young people doing this. Shit, I remember Shawshank Redemption. The old man gets out of jail, matriculates back into society. He sees a society that he doesn't know, going to his government sponsored apartment, takes his life because he's out of sorts. He's isolated. He's out of his neighborhood. He has no tribe. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What do you brothers
It
say
takes
about the epidemic of deletion that's going on? And I can remember back in the pandemic, there was a super increase of military men taking their lives. You know what I mean? It went up by a market percent because of what they were going through during that time period. Um, why do y'all think? Why is society not giving enough attention to this?
Well, I think one of the things we
Disposable.
have.
Are they not giving attention to it? I mean, you
No.
mean why they not putting effort into fixing it?
Right. Right. Why are they not
They promote,
putting the adequate attention to this? And then you'll have areas like Canada who basically usher you into it. You've
Okay,
heard about
enlighten
those
me now.
stories.
Yeah.
We've dealt with several stories on the show about that. How if you want to do that, they'll arrange for you to do it. And actually pay your survivors, your family that survives you, if you do it. I remember that Luck was on the show with me when we did the show about the disposable man. Remember that, Luck?
I ain't gonna hold you. I kind of forgot until now. Okay.
Yeah, we were talking about the disposable man. And in many, many ways, society believes that men are disposable. And we really don't get a whole lot of credence for the value that we put into society. And you just brought it up. The penal system.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They usher brothers in and out of that thing like crazy. And I just found out a tidbit that I'm going to drop on y'all in a minute because I want to do that before we run out of time on the show. But what say you guys about this rise of suicide among men with no agency?
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with when you feel you have no use or no place in the world that you're in. We're talking about AI. We're talking about robotics and those things that'll be taking over human jobs. We live in a world that's built around you having to work. And if you can't work, what's your worth?
Right.
So what is the use for men? We need the women because we still haven't, although we've tried to create the womb outside of the human body, we haven't perfected it yet.
Right.
So we have enough sperm stored up with, in these cryogenic databases that they have out here. So we're good there. But we still need, like on A Handmaid's Tale, a bunch of women running around, no men.
Yeah.
And then the problem with that is certain women can't have children. So what do we do with that? That's why if you see the original Handmaid's Tale, they're telling a story. And the woman and the people and the women who were able to have the children were who? Black women. That's
Yeah.
why it was so important to disconnect them from black men.
Right.
And we don't understand that. We're still on here fighting about where we're gonna go to eat. You know,
Mhm.
you ain't doing my hair and nails and taking me to a, our date need to be $1,000 a night. It's like, well, if you was realistic,
Right.
ain't many dudes making that kind of money where they can spend that kind of money.
Right. That's
And is
crazy.
it and is it irresponsible based on the racial wealth gap to even start doing it something like that?
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? You're gonna blow all your money one night on a date just to eat some food and talk
Yes.
for a couple
I know.
hours.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then we wonder why even some of these men and they have this, how can I put it? They have this ownership thing because the relationships become transactional. I own you, that kind of thing. You owe me something
Yep.
for what I just paid. I didn't get it.
Right.
So now I'm going, because I've
Right.
been raised by a bunch of women, I'm going to throw a temper tantrum. And what happens? Either, I just never talk to you again.
Right.
I beat you down or I unalive you.
Yeah, man. So I want to jump into
Right.
another part of what we're talking about: choosing the couch, the lazy boy paradox. Um, what say you guys about what's going on with the young men nowadays, where they're lashing out, lack of impulse control?
Oh yeah.
Um,
That's a big
there was
deal.
there
That's a
was
big deal
a
right there.
big deal. Like
Yeah.
we just showed it in Rochester. They were having a section 5 basketball game, and a big fight broke out in the middle of the Blue Cross Arena in the middle of the championship game
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of these
because
kids,
of lack of impulse control. And now
not
they're going
only
to
they have the lack of impulse control, they have no one there to guide them through their emotions.
mm-hmm.
If you're a kid who's playing sports, especially something like basketball,
Right.
you have the parents, mom and dad, or the guardian, living their NBA dreams through them. We're going to make
Yep.
millions.
Yep.
So they've
Great
allowed
point.
for the
Great
kid.
point.
You've seen it, coaching football. Little
Mm-hmm.
boy, yeah, he may
Right.
be nice playing little league football. Pop Warner, he goes to high school. He may be pretty good because coming up. But we all know when you see some of these guys, the one out of 10 million that make it to the pros, kind of skill set that they got, they don't understand that what their kids have to do to get there. And a lot of it isn't even just skill set. Because we know brothers that we played with growing up said, man, the dude can easily play in the pros. But part of it is being in the right place at the right time.
And navigating yourself through it and managing yourself, and purporting yourself, showing up, you know, and representing
Mm-hmm.
yourself well enough to be so that someone could trust, you in a moment like that and bestowing you with the scholarship and all of those sorts of things. And then
Right.
Luck brought up a great point a minute ago about the diet. The diet is huge.
Yep.
Diet is huge. If it's a sugar filled diet, soy filled diet, late
Mm-hmm.
night eating, all those sorts of things,
Right.
that's not going to lean toward a self controlled young man
Nope.
that's
Nope.
going to go out there, develop, and do great things. You know what I mean?
Nope.
Yep.
That's
Yeah,
that's
man.
it's meant to tilt your chemicals to an imbalance. That's what it's really truly meant to do. And then you
Yeah.
got okay. So the thing is more like, look, hey, look, I'm just gonna say it like it is in my mind, B. You know what I'm saying? And
Please,
I'll
please
stand
do.
and I'll stand corrected. I don't mind because that's how I learn. I gotta be wrong sometimes. You know what I mean?
Yes,
But my
sir.
thing is like this, man. They're attacking all of us from all different angles, man. They've been doing it for so many decades, man. So many decades. It's just ridiculous now. Again, you go back to the foods, so they're attacking you through the foods, right? All these, the soy, sucrose, um, all kind of oses. All the oses are sugars, right? You might have 3, 4 different sugars in one product. All of it does what? It breaks down your nervous system. It builds mucus in areas where mucus shouldn't be over influx. So now you got arthritis and all kinds of
Mm.
frustrations going on with you. So now you're in a bad mood. And
Mm.
sometimes you're in a bad mood and you don't realize you're in a bad mood because you're so accustomed being in that mode, that mode now, that it feels regular, right? And then others around you are not understanding what's going on. The ones who are less sick than you are looking at you like you're psychotic. And then the ones who are just as sick as you are on the inside with all these different modalities, I guess they use that word there. Guess what? They're just looking at you as competition, right?
Mm.
So you have all of this going on, and then you got, so that's on the health side, right? That's the health field, that's the health corporations waiting for you. And then when they don't catch you in their dragnet, then you got the jail system corporation waiting to catch you in the dragnet, right? So what else helped these two different organizations make money off of human chattel is the fact that, hey, look, now the law system is putting all these nonsense laws in place from the Hague Convention all the way everywhere else because the Hague Convention is what messed up the West Indies. I used to be in the school system over
Mm.
there. We used to get spankings. We got spankings for times tables, spankings for spelling words, spankings for our shirt being out of place. I even got beatings for sweating on the wrong day of the week by my teacher.
Yeah, I'm familiar. I'm
Yeah,
familiar.
that's real. I know. Vic knows I bring it up every now and
I'm
again. You know
familiar.
what?
I had a shit kicker of a Trini grandmother myself.
Okay. So you know what
No
time
joke.
it
They
is.
didn't play. Get that, they didn't play. Ain't with nobody to play with.
So you know what time it is. Now,
Yes,
saying
sir.
all that is to say this. I wouldn't change that part right there. But when the Hague Convention got into play and Trinidad became part of the Hague Convention to pick on one of the islands, Trinidad stopped spanking. Kids ain't
Mm.
saying good afternoon, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. Good afternoon. Good evening. Righto. Nice day. They ain't doing none of that no more. None of that.
Mm.
It used to be that I could get into a max taxi, come into the maxi, and the two little girls that were sitting in the maxi before I walk in would look at me and look at my mom as we walking in. Good evening. Good afternoon. Howdy. Righto. Righto. They used to say righto when you're leaving. Like, you don't get none of that no more, man. None of that. Right? There's no more respect. And you know
So let
what?
me throw
Well,
it.
you know,
Just
it's
So
like
not.
this. Yep.
go
I
ahead,
don't
bro.
think it's respect. I think it's there's a certain ethos, characteristics, and behaviors that exist in the Western paradigm, and I think what a lot of these countries are trying to become what they think the West is like, and that some of them also are getting a lot of repatriates back to their country, and they're coming with a very American and European style of just living. And so
Right.
a lot of that stuff now is falling by the wayside because they're focused on trying to be that than being what they traditionally have been.
I agree with you because like when the West Indies. See, I was born here. Just for the listeners that don't know where I'm coming from, I was born here, but I lived in the West Indies, right? So the thing is that when we had two channels that both signed off 12 o'clock at night on the button,
We did
on the
too.
button,
We did too.
on the
They
button.
stopped
Okay,
that with the late,
right.
late, 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 late show.
Right. So when we lost that, you know what I mean? You
Yep.
lost, and that's just a microcosm of a macrocosm. That also went out. And the MTVs and the cable shows started coming in. The over infatuation with with the Western way of things. And then again linked up with the Hague Convention because when they attack, they're attacking multiple corporations. They don't just attack one by one. They attack all at the same time. It's like they're trying to give you HIV then. They're trying to create an HIV in the system of your country. You know what I mean? Multiple attacking agents going into your body. And in this case, the society that we had, right? So now
Mm-hmm.
you're not having parents checking their kids no more. And those kids are growing up to be parents that don't check their kids. And those kids is growing up to be kids, become parents that don't check their kids. So now you have a line from the great grand all the way forward, not checking their kids. Why? Because this society, along with the Hague Convention, having created a system where it's illegal for you to even spank your kids. How about that? I'm not saying
Mm.
abuse your kids. I'm not saying abuse them. I'm against that. I'm saying spank them and spank them with a reasoning behind it. You talk to them after you spank them. I used to spank my chosen daughter. I only
Yeah,
had to spank her
corporal
like 3 times, and you know what? Never had to spank her again. You know why? Those 3 times I spanked her, I sat her on my lap and I spoke to her and I said, listen, and you know, in the West Indies, the thing I didn't do that they used to do in the West Indies, you spank the kid and they say, don't cry. And you don't cry. You just beat the crap out of them, but now you're gonna tell them don't cry at the same time. I was
Well,
the
you know,
opposite.
I think that's universal. I think it's something that's universal. You can sort of say Pan-African, because I have friends, you know, across the seas when they got spankings, and I think we all went through that. I remember getting them. I used to get some beat downs, man, because I guess I was just that kid.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, and it seemed like every time the belt swing, man, it was something I told you not to do. So, you know, as you getting that beat down, you're getting a lecture at the same time.
Yes,
So,
man.
you
Yes,
know,
man.
and then you get that shut up, stop
Yep.
crying. I'm like,
Yep.
just like you
Yeah,
said, man, you just finished beating the
Yep.
crap
yeah.
out of me, man. What you think I'm
Yeah.
supposed to do?
Now, what I used to
Right.
do, I did different. So I saw that, right? And I said, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna spank her. I'm gonna sit on my lap, and I'm gonna tell her to cry. Cry it out. Get it out your system. And after this, I will explain to you why it happened. And then after I explained it to her, I told her I love you. That's why I did it, because I don't want you to get caught up in there and there are traps out there. I don't want you in a psych ward. I don't want you in a jail system. I'm looking out for your future by spanking you when I have to. Just don't give me the reason to do it, and I'll know that you learned. You know what I'm saying? So just simple, but all in all, this is the problem. They're attacking us from all angles, and then they're making it that the adults no longer are brave enough to correct their children, or even have the knowledge that they should be correcting their children, because they themselves wasn't even corrected that way. And I'm not saying that for all families. I'm saying that for a lot of families. It's a
So
lot.
let's
It ain't
let's
all,
jump
but
let's
it's a lot.
let's jump into something else real quick. That's in the same
Sure.
subject matter, but it's a different layer, different angle, different chamber. This right here, women dominated
Oh,
professions.
Mm.
So,
Ooh.
as a teacher,
Mhm.
as a 22-decade old teacher going on 3 decades, um, I'm a minority, a super minority in
Mhm.
my profession, and I've had testimony anecdotally from my kids where they could spend an entire day and not see a man,
Mm.
not be guided by a man in the education realm, in the
Mm-hmm.
health realm, in
Mm-hmm.
the recreation realm, at
Mm-hmm.
the library.
Mm-hmm.
Nowhere in their immediate vicinity do they
Mm-hmm.
have the pleasure and the guidance of a responsible man to help you make decisions outside of the home.
Mm-hmm. Mm.
And Luck talked earlier about the penal system throwing our best and brightest away, or at least our most upstanding away. And 'cause I believe that. I believe there's a reason for that. And, that's another show. But how can our young men make better choices than to choose the lazy boy if they're always surrounded by women and they're not surrounded by the men who gives them that rite of passage, takes them out of their comfort zone, and teaches them and raises them and shows them how to become a full grown man, responsible and otherwise. Well, what's your thoughts on that?
Uh, uh, it's one of those things, man, because women in general always look at the young men and always look at them as their sons to a degree. You know what I mean? So it's always leave my baby alone. So in these professions, the young boys then grow up, they hit teenage years, and these little boys learn how to sweet talk and finesse a lot of these women.
Mm.
So of course, they
Yeah.
always get, an opportunity to skate by. And that's the unfortunate part about a lot of these professions, because especially in the education realm where you're at, it seems like a lot of these sisters cannot maintain long-term relationships or healthy relationships. So it's a lot of them that's single, and a lot of them be looking at these young men as de facto husbands or their work husband. You know how you have to think about the work husbands? These little boys become their work husbands. And, you know, so you hear some women saying, oh, that's sex. No, you know what I'm talking about. Because you latch on to these little boys and, you know, and always trying to help them out. And some of them tend to go too far in terms of, you know, what they allow them to get away with, not what they do for them per se, or it's what they allow them to get away with. And as the men who are in the profession, you know, we ain't letting them get away with that. So who do they gravitate towards? They gravitate towards the women, and they battle with the men that are there because they don't have any men around. So they think anything that has to do with a man, they're going to get from what they see at home with their parents. And in general, what some of these teachers be talking about when they be talking to each other outside the classroom. Girl, no, that nigga ain't no good. And they don't think the kids hear that stuff. They be hearing that, man. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So now he looking at these dudes. He ain't got no respect for them because he's hearing his mama go through it, his aunties go through it, and then he sees his teachers go through it. And every time the automatic reaction is, what did he do wrong? Instead of it being what didn't work in the relationship. Maybe they just weren't meant to be together. Or maybe it's just she ain't that kind of person you want to be with. Whatever it may be. But it always ends up being he ain't no good. So these young boys and young folks in general never develop the connectedness to a lot of these men that are in their lives. Stay in the women-dominated professions. For the few that are there, they don't develop any type of allegiance, any type of connection because there's none around them. You know, and the man in the profession, you have to be, you know, you got to be walking tall with a big stick, you know, and let these kids know I'm not the one.
Right.
You know what I mean? Y'all seen that video out there, the young kid who walked up and snuffed the teacher. And then and I'm saying the fact that he was even thinking like that shows you that he ain't got no respect, man. You know, and is it because he just is a degenerate kid? No, these kids are products of what society has put out there. And then there's another one where, you know, you had a strong male in the classroom and the boy was talking crap. And he had to show him, he said, listen, man, I'm not the one. I'm not the one. And when it was all said and done, you know, we got to take you down to the nurse's office. But I told you, I'm not the one. I'm letting all the rest of you young boys in the class know I'm not the one. So I don't know what y'all be thinking, but it ain't happening here, bro. So I need y'all to sit down, do your work. Don't worry, the nurse is coming to pick him up, take care of him, and call his mama. Let his mama and daddy know you can come see me.
Hey, man, I'm going to give y'all a glimpse of a kind of not an anecdotal, but a sign of the times. So hip hop is right along with no fault divorce, and in kind of the duration, not hip hop or rap is in line with that, and then of course that's also in line with a lot of single-headed households. And then you produce things like this in the consciousness and in the culture. Can y'all see that right quick? Hey, look, take a look at this real quick. Can y'all see that?
Yeah, we can see it. I can see it.
Now, rap is supposed to be the ultimate bravado expression. I'm the man. I'm tough. I'm rough. I'm from the hood. I'm from the street. I get down. You know the way I get down. And then you got somebody from my hometown that's supposed to represent that very same aesthetic, and he looked like my grandmother going to the laundromat.
He ain't Joey Crack. He Joey Crack upside his head. What the hell wrong with him?
Now, the reason why I know this is a thing is because I was in the library.
Yo, Vic. He looking like Blue Bonnet Butter.
Right.
Everything's better with Blue Bonnet on it. I remember those commercials, man.
Right.
Remember that? Everything's
Exactly.
better with blue bonnet on it.
Exactly. So
Oh no.
I run into a young man. He's in the library. He's a very nice young man. It's maybe about 3 or 4, maybe about 5 years ago. And he's got one of these things wrapped around his head. So my man runs the library. He runs the teen section of the library. So I'm visiting him and we kicking it. And this is a nice young man. So he comes up to him and I guess he's working in the library. And he comes to get whatever orders and stuff he has to do to finish the shift. And I asked the young man, I said, why do you choose to wear that on your head? Oh, it's just a scarf. It's just a, and I was like, we had an entire, like, almost, I guess, controversial conversation about why he has that on his head and where the root of that came from, why that's not really healthy for a young man to emulate. What are you actually emulating? And so on and so forth. And according to him, he did no wrong. Why? Because he sees Fat Joe doing it. And he sees, men that he looks up to emulating these same sort of things. Now, is that not to say that men never wore scarves around their head? Or men never wore long robes that went down to their feet to that somebody could interpret as a dress or some sort of long object that they're wearing, in that regard? But where's the line that you should draw when, of course, you have a nation that wants to, with the savage inequalities, wants to wipe you out first
Yeah,
and
when they
foremost.
emasculate you. When they
And
emasculate
one
you,
of the
this is
main
one of the
ways that they
techniques.
can wipe you out is through the emasculation of what you do and who you are and how you
Yeah.
purport yourself, what you stand
Yeah.
for. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
What say and that the skinny jeans is another example. That used
I
to be
can't stand that skinny jeans.
that used to be the Vidal Sassoon jeans in the 80s, and then it just
Crap.
moved on and on and on until right around the year 2000 everybody started wearing skinny jeans with their butt hanging out off the head. You know what I mean?
Well,
Yep.
yeah. I think part of it too is we have to understand throughout fashion, there is a homosexual agenda
Yes,
that
sir.
we tend not to pay attention to. If I want a man, I want to try to feminize that man as much as possible. And when you look at things like what Fat Joe is doing, when you start getting into the skinny jeans, that's all that was, man. But see, we perpetuate a lot of things that we have no idea what it is that we're perpetuating. It's just that we always, because as a people, we're like, as Malcolm said, tree without its roots, man. You ain't no tumbleweed. So we're trying to land somewhere constantly. And we think if we can, always have the latest fashions, or whatever it may be, and how outlandish it may be, we still think that, and it brings attention to us. We feel good about ourselves.
Right.
Yeah, man. And forget Diddy, you brought that homosexual context up. Now you got this dude, he's ready to become the next bussy bandit running around.
A lot of people have been saying things about this dude for years, man. And
Check that out.
where there's smoke, there's fire.
Oh wow.
Ain't that what they say? Where there's smoke,
Is
there's
that
fire.
a fact? Whoa.
Yeah.
You can't keep
Now I don't know
saying
if
that.
this is about. I don't know if this is about somebody not getting a little piece of check, a little piece of money that was promised, or a little piece of roll that was promised, or whatever. But you seeing more and more and more of this coming from decades of single parent households and people being told that sort of thing is okay.
And then, and you notice the people who are getting caught up, the current person that's supposedly going, they're going through the RICO trial and everything else. And
yeah.
this individual, if you look at both of them, they have a history of what? They have
Yeah.
a history.
That type of household.
Well, not only that, but they have a history in the industry of being assholes to people.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Not
Yeah.
paying people.
Yeah,
I mean, think about it.
Monique go crazy about that every trip.
Yeah, and you know, and it's well documented that both of them. I mean, we all know that almost every artist under Sean Puffy Combs never made no money. You know, except for
Yeah.
those who broke away. And then you
Yeah.
look at Tyler Perry, name an actor that he paid some serious money to. And think about the time that all the black writers from in the Writers Guild had to sue him because he wasn't even paying them the prevailing wage. And then decided, then you know what? I'll write all my shows myself. That's why all his shows are the same.
Good point.
And you're going to just certain. It's what's going to happen is you're going to get very big, and there's some people you done pissed off along the way, and then somebody going to call it out, and you're going to be the next one. But what we see in a lot of this though is an onslaught, and the final nail of the coffin for black men, where it's going to be a point where we can walk down the street and somebody can shoot us just because. And, the attitude is niggas they ain't worth nothing anyway.
Oh, man.
Right.
So
it's getting to that point.
Yeah, man. Yeah. And I don't know if you guys heard about the David Hogue piece. He's the vice president of the Democratic Party, or was. And they made him. They gave him the outs, and he was a young dude, and he was supposed to be the next one to come up and make his presence in the world. And how can young men not choose the couch when you got this at hand over the last couple of election cycles? Democratic misandry of the male voter.
Yeah.
So if you look at CNN or you look at MSNBC or any of those talking heads, even Fox, they're talking about, we got a male problem. We got a male problem. And they're driving themselves crazy trying to solve how they can relate to modern men and just men in general, because men ain't having it. Men ain't having men chose the couch on this election in general because they didn't like Trump and they didn't like and they didn't like the other sister that was running. Right. And not because she's a sister, but because her politics sucked.
Yeah.
Black men have realized in this country, even the most you can sort of say basic man and black man in America, they've realized that what's going on ain't right as it relates to black men. And what they are recognizing also is that it's democratic, is liberal democratic policies that is making it worse for us. And then you have our gatekeepers, who subscribe to it because it keeps them fat and happy. But they understand. You talk. I mean, I don't care where you talk or you watch it. You turn on social media, YouTube, and all that, and you just got brothers saying, "Listen, man, I'm just tired of the crap that's been going on. I'm just tired of it. Everything is anti-black male. Everything." Yep. So, why am I going? And then when you start looking at the two parties, you can't say it's Republicans because they haven't been in office that much. And when you start talking about everything that goes on, the people that we having problems with and people that stabbing us in the back and doing all this other stuff, they only belong to one. They always belong to the Democratic Party. You can only fool me but for so long. Eventually, I'm gonna catch on. And we have caught on. Black men in general have caught on, and they're trying to find their way out. For those who are men, trying to be men, think that they're men, and that are acting like men, trying to find a way out and find a way of not only surviving but thriving once again, because we know right now we're not. And if we don't do something right away, we can be an extinct group of people in this country and in other parts of this world.
I'm glad you brought that point up. So this is what the guy David Hogue wanted. He wanted to eliminate faithful party incumbents. Interesting, right? So that means no nepotism because you a long time demo dude. You know what I mean? You're a Democrat.
Right.
You're a long time politician, and you feel it's your term, your time, and you think you deserve it, like a Biden, like a Bernie Sanders, and you've been revolving. You haven't been really effective long term, but you've been revolving in these circles for years and years and years, and you believe it's your turn to wield the mantle of power versus who's the most effective at what they're doing.
And
And
that's
then
even here.
And then the dude had a comment, and I want to get y'all take on this. He said that Hogue said Wednesday he would not fight to hold on to his leadership role after igniting a firestorm over his push to target long-serving Democrats in safe congressional seats. There goes those congressional soft seats again. Talked about that a shit ton. And in the thread on X, Hogue said that the Political Action Committee will become an Emily's list for professional young Democrats, given the chance. A reference to advocacy groups for Democratic female candidates. So, what do y'all think about that, man? And he was let go over these things. He wanted to see a new day usher in for integral male candidates to enter that fray because he knew that that's what the party needed, and then he wanted to eliminate nepotism of the Biden, Bernie, Kennedys that believe they belong in the seat. And how are you going to ever get men back to that party if you don't start doing things like that show that you're really willing to move the needle?
And you're willing to show that you're trying to make a difference, and that it's all inclusive of everybody, not specific people. And I don't have to pass a certain litmus test and somehow stay in the fray for as long as I can, just so I can end up in a position. But a lot of that really is targeting Black people when you think about it, because a lot of these old white Democrats can leave if they want to and just be just fine in life, because a lot of them that go into office were already successful before they got into office.
Right.
And they spend enough time in office where they have a very large war chest.
Yeah, right. The Bloombergs of the world. Yeah.
Right. And then they have and then there's others who have very large war chests that they take that money with them when they go. So they're all millionaires. Yes. It's the professional politician who's never had a real job, i.e. most Black people, because we go into politics for a job. We don't go there to make a difference. And that's the difference between us and white politicians. White politicians go in there to carry out an agenda. We go in there because it's a great job to get. And if you get it, you can probably keep it and you can do very well. You get to appear in all the important places. And when you walk down the street, people see you and you're a very important person. But when you look at the sum of all actions and activity and legislation, you're still batting zero. I hate to say that, but what's her name? Sister from California. I don't even think about her no more, man. She got to go.
The elder sister?
Yeah, the assemblywoman from California. It's the congresswoman from California.
Well, you're not talking about the one from Dallas.
No, I'm talking about the one from LA.
Okay.
Yeah, I know the sister, man.
I think I know who you're talking about, B, but I can't bring up her name.
They always want to call her auntie.
Yeah. I know who you're talking about. I know her name. Shoot.
You talking about Sheila Jackson?
No, older sister, man. Been around forever.
Maxine Waters.
Yeah, Maxine.
Let me tell you a situation, man. out in California at a place called The Good Life, and it was a big restaurant out in Compton. Not
That's my
Compton,
yeah. That's hip
but
hop. That's where hip hop. Yeah, Good Life.
yeah. So I'm talking. She shows up, and I remember a brother who gave her some information about, HIV and AIDS hypothesis, and that they may be a little incorrect. And so maybe you need to stop doing what you're doing in terms of legislation that other people are authoring that you're jumping on that subjects the Black community. And this is not, some brother who gave her some stuff that he done put together. Some people just give you a bunch of papers and all that. This was a researcher who gave her some stuff, nicely neat, packaged and everything. And she said to the brother, "What you want me to do with this?" This was back in the 90s. And ever since then, I was done with her, man. What am I supposed to do?
Yeah, because everybody had her as like one of the saving graces of the political world back then. She had a lot of people's respect, who I even knew. You know what I mean? So I get why that turned you off, because with the reputation that she was carrying.
What respect did she earn? Because I'm trying to. You earn respect on the things that you do and have done.
Right.
We can't think of one thing that she's done. The only thing she's ever done is show up when there was a photo op, no matter what the issue is, and talk a good game.
Yeah, that's about right.
That's
about right. I can't speak to none of her accomplishments except for being, let's just keep it real, being African American in the political world for so many years, speak up here and there about a couple of things on the floor, what have you. But other than that, I don't know anything about her. Honestly, I don't.
You don't know much
I know
about
more
herself.
about Jasmine Crockett than I know about her.
Yeah.
And Jasmine
just got
her law firm to do this.
Yeah, and here's what happens is we have people like her. She has somebody right behind her who she's grooming, and when she finally passes the torch, that person's going to automatically land themselves in the position, and they've never done anything to even get in that position except for be by her side.
Right.
So
that's the problem that we have.
So we're at the 10 o'clock hour, and unfortunately, we got to shut it down. We have a couple more things to do with this. So if y'all want to do a part 2 next Wednesday on this, I think it's worth it, because then we can get to some solution-oriented methods, because I know all three of us have spent a gross amount of time trying to be remedies for these young men and what they need out here, whether they're our sons friends, our sons in their their friendship tribes, their friendship families, on and on and on down the list. My brother Negus from Be Healthy right here in Rochester, him and Imhotep, they're doing a Boys to Men leadership young men boys conference in Rochester. I believe it's in either July or August of this year. So that's some other ways that we can
spans the 2 months in between.
Yeah.
2 months.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So, we're going to get to some of the answers of this, because this is a pivotal conversation of our time, because it's about the future of our young men and how our grands and great grands are going to show up in the world as upstanding men with their chest out and chin up. You know what I mean? Not falling for everything under the sun. So, thanks everybody for joining us for tonight's episode. This was really dope. A lot of higher discussions being had, and make sure you guys timestamp what you like, what you don't like, what you got to beef with, or whatever. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, and comment to what you like, don't like, or got beef with. Tap in, turn on all your notifications, so every time we have a Real HD show, you could tap in with us and have a higher discussion. So for Mozzie, Brother Godspeed, and myself, we wish y'all peace, y'all walk with power, and we will be back with y'all next Wednesday. Peace, y'all.
Peace.
Later.